evening, everyone. Welcome back to Grumpy Acres Farm. And this is the next in our City Survival 101 series. We're going to discuss the full spectrum preparedness framework. I'm Grumpy G, also known as Garen. And tonight, we're going to be delving into medical readiness and what to do when help won't come. Before we get in there, if you're in the YouTube channel, go ahead and make sure that you are in the live chat instead of the top chat, so you can see all the conversation. And if you're new here, think about subscribing after this is over. Not very polished. I'm not the best presenter, but I'm here to help you learn this stuff and become more familiar with it. Leonard, Utah, Mike, Jane, thank you for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like button and let YouTube know you like this type of content, because you're not only helping me, you're helping all the other creators that do stuff like this. Now, when the grid goes down and hospitals are overwhelmed, it's not just about gear. It's about what you know, what you practiced, and how prepared you are, and your community, how it handles health emergencies. So tonight's live stream, as I said, City Survival 101, medical preparedness. When help won't come, you become the medic. Okay, before we go on to the presentation proper, let me ask you guys a question. Can't Squatch, thanks for being here tonight, bud. So here's the question I got for you. Put your answer down in the comments or in the live chat. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go look at the poll from Monday. So let us know in the chat if you've taken any first aid or trauma care training. Don't have to tell us what it is. Just let us know if you're in the chat, if you've done that. Now, the poll on Monday was about the full spectrum preparedness aspect of medical. And the question was, do you have medical supplies and skills to handle basic emergencies at home? So there were 30 people that responded. 63% said, yes, I have trained in first aid. 20% said, I have supplies, but no training. 13% just said basic first aid kit. And 3% said nothing at all. You 3%ers, man, we need to get you guys going. You need to step up your game there. Time. I'm not saying it's running short, but it very well could be. So here's a quote from Sherry Fink, who is a medical. What'd she do? Well, I went too far. I pressed the wrong thing. So she made the quote: emergencies can reveal underlying response or vulnerabilities and challenges in medicine. Lynn says USMC basic first aid. Jane says yes. Utah Mike says daughter went through nursing and then moved out of the state. Grumpy sad face. And Scanes shows up. All right. The first thing we're going to discuss is why medical preparedness matters. Okay, let's start with the why, especially in urban and suburban environments. When society collapses, medical systems are often the first to be overwhelmed. Ambulances may not show up, hospitals may be closed, pharmacies could be emptied in a matter of days. In fact, in a lot of places, they become targets. Now think about your household, and you don't need to answer this, but think about your household. Who needs daily medication? Who's prone to injuries or illness? And if you can't answer that to yourself right now, it's time to start paying attention. So the key idea here is that in a crisis, your survival isn't just about what's in your trauma kit. It's about your ability to respond quickly, calmly, and competently. All right. So here's another question for you. Are you ready to be your own medic? Just drop a yes or no in there. And what I mean by are you ready to be your own medic? Do you have it in here the understanding that, yes, I have to be my own medic. And if you don't have the training, be willing to go out and get the training. Skanes reminds us that she's a nurse. Okay, so now let's talk about medical in the full spectrum preparedness framework. So full spectrum preparedness is a holistic model, meaning that it's kind of all encompassing, and it's not just about gear or training. It's about mindset, community, and continuity, and more. So here's how it breaks down. So the first one is mindset. This is the ability to stay calm and focused. Medical readiness is everything. All right. So we want to make sure that we're in the right frame of mind. The next one is skills, first aid, trauma, chronic illness management. We need to learn these before we need to use them. Gear. We need to understand. We need to look at building modular kits, your EDC kit, your home kit, and your bug out kit. And then the next one's community. And you know our community system. If you've been on the channel for any amount of time, you know how important I think community is. So in community aspect of medical, you want to identify people around you that have medical backgrounds, and you also want to identify people in the community that may need special attention. All right. Next one, or the last one I should say, is continuity. So part of the medical framework is planning. And you want to plan for long-term care without hospitals. You want to be able to survive without medical services being there. All right, now here's a question for you guys. Which of these 5 do you feel weakest in right now? Is it skills, gear, continuity, mindset? You don't have to answer it, but if you want to, go ahead and put it in the comments. Which one you feel you're the weakest in? And this sort of the reason I'm asking this question is because it's a sort of self-audit. You know, we need to be able to look inward and figure out where we're weak so we can work on that. And Anti just popped into the chat. How you doing, bud? Can Squash says he needs to learn more skills. You know, I think everybody, even if you're competent, you could always learn more skills. You know, we're never too old to stop learning. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is the domino effect in an urban collapse. So we're going to talk about the real threats that you're likely to face in an urban collapse. And guys, listen, as I'm going through this, I realized something. I was working on the book today, and I realized something. In the context of all these different aspects of full spectrum preparedness, and we're talking about a collapse in an urban and suburban setting, unless we're talking about the specific differences between the two, when I say urban, I am talking about people that live in a major urban metro area, and that includes the inner city and the suburbs as well. Okay, so just know that when I say that, unless I'm specifically identifying the difference between the two, I'm talking about both of them. All right. So number one, this is the domino effect. This is the way it's most likely to go if a collapse happens. First thing is going to be sanitation breakdown. So no trash pickup, toilets back up, and disease spreads. And the reason why the sanitation breaks down first is because in modern cities, it's completely reliant on electricity. And once the electricity goes away, all these treatment plants disappear. Potable water starts to disappear, and all these things happen. So once sanitation breaks down, the next thing that happens is disease outbreaks happen. And we're thinking things like typhoid and cholera, skin infections, and in this case, preventative hygiene is the key. And without sanitation supplies, without clean, potable water, that becomes exponentially harder. All right. So once the disease outbreaks start, then the hospitals get overwhelmed, and access to these hospitals becomes limited, and you become your own medic. You know, the ambulance isn't running. Emergency services like fire department and the police are not be able to function. They're overwhelmed. They're either stretched too thin, or if it gets bad enough, they just cease to exist at all. And once the hospitals get overwhelmed, you've usually reached the point in an urban area where violence and trauma escalate, and they escalate really quick. You get riots, you get stabbings, you get gunshots. And as an individual, you need to be able to, as it says on the slide, be ready to stop the bleeding and stabilize. You need to know basic first aid, basic stabilization skills. All right. Now, and after all that happens, the issues with pharmaceutical dependency comes in. No meds, chronic conditions spiral quickly. If you're a diabetic and you don't have your insulin, you could die within a matter of days. And in today's society, the pharmaceutical dependency on psychotropic drugs is off the charts. What happens when those people's meds run out and they are not able to control these psychological problems they have? That goes on to the next one. Hey, Mississippi Homestead. So after the drugs go away, you're left dealing with the mental stress without any medication whatsoever. And I'm not just talking about the people with chronic mental conditions, fear, isolation, PTSD, all these things contribute to poor mental health, which in turn leads to poor physical health. And it's just it just becomes a spiral. All right, so here's the question I want to ask you. If you had to treat someone with no access to a hospital, what would you be most concerned about? Infection, bleeding, or something else? What would you be most concerned about if you were faced with somebody in front of you that had something wrong? What condition would be your worst fear? I'm going to tell you mine. It's the traumatic injuries, like crushed bones, head injuries, crushing injuries to the head, amputations, things like that. So I worked at a major inner city hospital, and one of the nurses in the ER was in a medical reserve unit, and he got sent to Iraq during the surge, which was when all the heavy fighting was taking place. And he came back, and I asked him, I said, so was working here at Truman in the ER, was it good? Was it good training for you? And he said, yes, except for one thing. He was not ready for all the traumatic amputations and things like that from the EIDs. That was not something that's normal, even in a level 1 trauma center in a major inner city. All right. So that's my fear. Jane says bleeding. Bleeding is her big fear. All right. Okay. So I want you guys to envision medical preparedness as a pyramid. We're going to call it the medical preparedness pyramid. And it's a 3-level pyramid. The bottom level, and the one with the widest base at the widest base is prevention. The next level is first response. This is your initial first aid and stabilization. And then the highest level, the peak of the pyramid, is advanced trauma and long-term care. All right. So let's look at prevention first. Let's look at what prevention entails. So some of the main things that we're concerned about with prevention is before a crisis happens, we need to get healthy. We need to exercise, eat well, stay fit. Having a healthy body going into something like this is going to prevent a lot of stuff from happening to you. The second one, keep up on vaccines. Now, when I say keep up on vaccines, I am not talking about experimental medical things that they changed into the name vaccine. I'm talking about tried and true vaccines that are proven to help you, like tetanus, flu, hepatitis, things like that. If you're in the military, you know exactly what you're talking about, or what I'm talking about. We had to do that anytime we deployed. You need to keep up to date on those. Which reminds me, I need to break out my vaccine record and see what needs to be updated. All right. So the next one is stock up on hygiene supplies. We need to make sure that we have a good supply of soap, sanitizers, trash bags, wipes, anything to do with basic hygiene. We need to have it. We need to stock up on it. You know, stocking up on toilet paper during a crisis is great, but if you don't have all that other stuff, you're kind of SOL. All right. The next one is control bugs, mosquitoes, roaches, things like that. They spread disease. All right. So we need to make sure that we are, before and during and after a crisis, we need to make sure that we are keeping the bug population under control so that they aren't spreading diseases. All right. And the last one, we need to learn how to grow medical herbs. You know, we need to get on rooftops, balconies, and in containers in apartments, on your back porch if you're in the suburbs. Turn a large portion of your yard into a medicinal garden. But we need to start growing these natural remedies to take up the slack should the pharmaceutical stuff go away. All right, question. Who's already started a medical herb garden, and what are you growing? We have started a medical herb garden. I could not tell you what all's in it because there's so much stuff in there, and it's just kind of going wild. So Mississippi Homestead Journey says, I worked as an anesthesia tech in a trauma hospital. Crushed bones or compound fractures scare me. Bleeding, not so much. I have fish antibiotics for infections. Yep, and that's and they want to get rid of. They want to keep people from using those fish antibiotics now too. Okay, so let's go to the next level of the pyramid, and that's first response. This is managing minor injuries and illnesses. First thing you do, you got to know first aid. All right. You have to know it. Next thing you do is you got to build a solid kit. We're going to talk about kits later on in the discussion, so I'm not going to go into the specifics about it at this point. All right. Next thing, we need to learn how to improvise. We need to be able to improvise treatment in austere conditions. If you run out of a packaged splint, how do you make one? If you've used up all your tourniquets, how do you make a tourniquet out of a belt or a cravette? You know, it all needs to practice. It's better to practice it now than have to learn it under real environment, you know, when something happens. And finally, you need to train, because training keeps you calm under pressure. You're going to hear me say this over and over and over again throughout this series. And if you get the book, I figured out that it's all throughout the book. When a crisis happens, you know, everybody thinks that they're gonna rise to what needs to be done in the crisis. That's not what happens. What happens is you fall to the highest level of your training. So if you have zero training in medical stuff, you're going to fall to zero training in medical stuff, and you're going to be left in a lurch because you're not going to know what to do. And worse, because you don't know what you're going to do, you're going to be panicked about it. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to completely lose it, but you're going to be under increased stress, which increases the possibility of accidents happening. All right. And then finally, the third level of the pyramid, the very top of the pyramid. You know, hey, before we go on, the best gear in the world is useless if you don't know how to use it, period. All right. So if you have an EDC kit, tell me what the most important gear in your mind is in that kit. And an EDC kit is, if you don't know, is an everyday carry kit. All right. Mine, I've got a tourniquet in there because I want to be able to stop the bleeding if somebody has a hole poked in them. All right. Now, Trauma and long-term care. So trauma care entails gunshots, stab wounds, crushing injuries, and the long-term treatment of these things. You know, you need to have tourniquets and stuff like that for, let's see, tourniquets, chest seals, decompression kits. You need to learn how to use these things, because those all come into play once you've done the initial stabilization and you start treating them for long term. Take a TCC or a TEC or a stop the bleed class. Now a TCC is let me see if I can remember what it is. Tactical Combat Casualty Care, and it's a course that's designed for military people in combat. And then a TECC is a Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, which is tailored for civilian first responders in high-risk scenarios like policemen and EMTs and firefighters. All right. And then long-term care, we're talking about infection control, splinting, hydration, dressing of wounds for days, weeks, or even months. All right. And this is the important part. This is the one, from working at a hospital, I can tell you unequivocally that this is the stuff that the nurses have to do constantly. They need to do the boring stuff. Changing gauze, repacking wounds, checking fevers. These are the things that save lives. Yes, the initial first response and the first trauma care saves lives, but it's everything that happens after that which ensures the person stays alive. Now, here's a question. Have you trained in trauma care yet, or just basic first aid? Now, I'm going to say I know I've taken basic first aid classes. I've had them in the Marine Corps. I have also had some long-term care, like learning how to pack wounds, learning how to do sutures and taking them out. I've had courses on that too. Am I an expert? No, but I am versed in it well enough that I can carry on a conversation with somebody who is the resident expert in that. Skane says you do a lot of long-term care and home health. Absolutely. Even Angela was a CNA for a while, and she was doing private care, and she did a lot of that stuff. Okay, now let's talk about managing chronic illnesses. This is a huge one, you know, because the boomers and Gen Xers are still a majority of the population, and we're going to see chronic illnesses in people a lot more often for a little while. And then, you know, people that got the pokey poke, numbers are showing that there are chronic illnesses that are popping up that seem to be in conjunction with that. So how do we manage chronic illness? And if you've got a chronic illness like I do, this is what we need to do. Number one, stock up a 90-day supply of meds. In fact, I'm going to go a step further. Go down to the affiliate links and go to Jace Medical. They will give you a year's supply of prescription medicines. They've got board certified physicians who review them, and you can buy them. It saved me about 20% on a yearly supply of my meds. So it was worth it. The next one, use vacuum sealed, put these things in vacuum sealed bags with desiccants and refrigeration where needed. You know, your diabetic supplies, those have to be refrigerated. And if you don't, they go bad very quickly. The next one, learn natural and alternative medicines. You know, learn how garlic works, cinnamon, mullein, hawthorn. You know, it's one of the things I've been trying to get off my heart meds. So I've been doing a lot of research into natural medicines, and there's a lot of stuff out there that will help you that you don't have to buy it from a pharmacy. And the last one, is keep printed records and dosages. This is important in a crisis in case you run into a medical professional or you get access to a hospital or medical services. You want to be able to show them exactly what's going on with your health so that they can help you in the proper manner. Next slide. So this is the long-term care is you're going to become your own healthcare provider at this point. Once you've gone past the point of being your own first responder, you're going to become your own healthcare provider. So here's some of the things you need to do. Build a medical reference library. I've got you guys know that I'm a huge book person. And I'm just looking at my books right now. Probably the top 3 books that I have, they're probably the most important. I want to say 4 books. I'm sorry. I got 4. Screw it. Let's say 5 books. Top 5 books on my medical shelf, going left and right, is I've got the complete home medicine guide. It's the American College of Physicians puts this out. The next one over is a physician's desktop reference. And if you don't know what this is, every year the pharmaceutical companies put out a book of every drug that's on the market. It's got the dosages, it's got what they do, it's got the listed side effects, and it's got all the names for it and everything. And they give these to the hospitals. So if you know anybody that works in a hospital, ask them that if they've got last year's, because they get a new one every year, and the old ones usually get stuffed in a corner someplace on a bookcase, forgotten. Ask them if they've got access to that and see if they can get you one. Because if you can keep, the drugs will change every year, but if you've got a book that's 5 years old, it's still got a majority of the stuff that's out there. The next one, I've got a hard copy of Where There Is No Doctor. Now you can get this free as a PDF online, but I'm going to put Where There Is No Doctor. There are 2 other books, and I'm going to combine them into one thing on the bookshelf. So these guys that wrote Where There Is No Doctor, they were in Peru doing care where it was a day's walk out of the mountains just to get to a paved road. Okay. So they've got Where There Is No Doctor. They've got Where There Is No Dentist, and they've got Where There Is No Midwife. And I've got all 3 of them on PDF, and I've got the Where There Is No Doctor in hard copy. But you can get the PDF. You can go to someplace like Staples, have them print it off and put it in a spiral binder, and you're good to go. The next one is the Encyclopedia of Natural Medicines. That's a really good one to have. And finally, the last one is the Survival Medicine Handbook by Dr. What is it? Dr. Alton and Nurse Amy. I should know their names. Anyway, but those are the 5 books. The next thing you do is you need to learn diagnostic basics. You need to learn how to identify medical conditions and how to diagnose them. You need to be able to know the difference between an infection and a virus, or a bacterial versus virus. You need to practice sanitation. You should be doing this beforehand, all right? Because it's a habit, and habits just don't start overnight. Practice sanitation, because I'm telling you right now, hospitals, if left undone, are the nastiest places in the world. And if you've got a sick person in your house during a collapse, you're running the risk of getting everybody else sick, and it just goes up. Again, grow medicinal plants, and finally, stockpile improvised medical equipment, or learn how to use it, make them. There you go. Anti just put the desk reference, the desk reference up there. There's the link for it. Oh, let me leave that up there for a bit. That's a good book to have. And if you get one for free, it's even better. Okay. The next one, this is the one everybody loves. This is always one of the first things that people get. You need to build your kits. And what you want to do is you want to think modular. The EDC kit is the smallest, and then you go to the home kit, and then the bug out kit. And you should be able to take parts of each one of these and pull them out and plug them into the one of the other kits. All right. So the EDC kit, the everyday carry kit, this is the kit that you carry on your body or in a bag. Because of my job, mine's in a bag, but it's the kit that you have in case an accident happens and you're the first one on the scene. Tourniquets, gloves, masks, an airway thing. If you know, they've got the little miniature airway things, you can get those. You know, have stuff like that. A good set of shears, and this is your first responder kit. You know, you want to be able to stop the bleeding, start the breathing, and treat for shock with your EDC kit. All right, the next one is your home kit. Your home kit is more complex and it entails trauma gear, meds, and diagnostic stuff. So like our home kit, it has a blood pressure cup in it, and it's got the tourniquets. It's got quite a bit of gauze. One thing, let me sidebar here. One thing, the improvised medical gear and the trauma, the gauze for trauma and all that. The one thing that used to really shock me working in the hospital, when they had a trauma patient come in and they took him into the ER bay, you know, where they wheeled him in and threw him on that thing like they do it in the movies, the amount of gauze and bandages that were piled up in the corner. And when I say piled up, they were huge piles. Unless you've got really deep pockets and a huge place to store this stuff, there's no way that you can have enough of that gauze and bandages and stuff. One gunshot and you're gonna run through everything you have in your kit. So you need to learn how to improvise things. Sheets work. You know, there's all kinds of different things. You sanitize them and they will work in lieu of the store-bought stuff. Okay, back onto the subject again. Bug out bag. So the bug out bag is basically, think of it as an extension of your home kit. The only difference is it's compact and mobile. All right. So you should if you don't have a dedicated bug out bag, which you should have, you know, bug out kit with medical, I should say, you should be able to grab stuff out of your home kit and throw it in a bag in a matter of minutes and have a bug out medical kit module ready to go. All right. It's that simple. All right. The next thing we want to talk about . Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Anti. In fact, I've got it's over on my channel on Rumble. You go down to the links below, and it should be streaming over there on Rumble too. I really wish that I could get a streaming software where I could see the chat from both of them. But yeah, and if you want to share it on your channel too, yeah, go ahead, man. That's perfectly fine. Anytime you want to do that. But we're all about sharing the information here. All right, the next one we want to talk about is we need to build medical mutual aid, and this is strength in numbers. And this is where community comes in. This is the community portion of it. First and foremost, you want to identify people that are local, that are in your group or adjacent, you know, in the area that your group is in, that have medical training. These people, in the event of a collapse or a crisis, are going to be essential. Next thing you want to do is you want to create mutual aid groups. This is we're talking about, you know, you build your tribe up, you build a mag, or you build a community like we're building here. That you want to get these groups that can work together, people that can work together, because more hands and more eyes are going to be better as far as medical goes. Once you create these groups, you want to start organizing training sessions. You know, you want to be able to get classes on basic first aid, have a certified CPR instructor come in and teach your group the proper way to do CPR. There's all kinds of stuff you can do as a group. You know, one of the things we did at Midwest before it got really big is we had a guy that was kind of in and out of, he's like kind of on the periphery of our group. He was a trauma surgeon, and we called him Trauma Bob. And he gave a class on suturing, and we got pig's feet and we practice suturing, and that's where I learned how to suture. Now I can suture you up. You're going to look like Frankenstein when you're done, but it's going to stick together because he did a really good job on teaching us. You know, one thing, and here's another sidebar. I found this very interesting. So in the chat, put a 1 in chat if you know what I mean when I say ditch medicine. All right, there's a term called ditch medicine. So I'm going to give you guys a second to do that, and then I'll finish the story. But Trauma Bob was an Air Force doctor, and that's where he got his trauma training. And he got out, and he was in the Midwest, and he quite literally one of the premier trauma doctors in the central Midwest here. And so he's very knowledgeable, very skilled, very professional when it comes to medical stuff. We started talking about ditch medicine, and he had no idea what it was. And I found it very interesting that somebody that came from the military and somebody that did trauma he had never heard the term ditch medicine. And if you don't know what ditch medicine is the type of medicine that takes place in the combat zone, in a ditch, under fire, or if you're in like the where there's no doctor people and you're living at 12,000 feet with a 1 day walk across a river to get to a road. That's the type of medicine that we're talking about. So, you know, you can learn all these things, and it really helps. Okay. The next one, barter and trade. You need to be able to barter and trade for your supplies because, like I said, in a long-term crisis, you are going to run out. One of the interesting stories from the Selko, the guy that wrote his memoir about being in Sarajevo during under siege during the Yugoslavian War, was how they would have to go out looking for medical supplies. You know, so you need to learn how to barter, and I've said it before. Bartering is a skill that you have to learn and you have to practice. It does not come naturally to a lot of people. All right. The next one and final one is stay vigilant. We want to stay vigilant because that's how we prevent the infections and the diseases and the chronic illnesses to become life-threatening. We need to stay on top of it and make sure we catch them when they're just starting out, so we don't have to deal with them when they're bad. Next slide. Mental health. Okay, here's before we go on to the next slide, let me ask you this question. Who's part of a mutual aid group, MAG, or a team right now? And just type team or solo if you don't have a community around you, all right? Don't do it if you don't want to. OPSEC, I understand. I'm asking some intrusive questions here tonight. But if you want to share, go ahead and share. Just put team or solo. Oh. I think my chat died. Either that or you guys just all of a sudden quit saying something in chat. Let me go. Give me 1 second, guys. I want to make sure that this didn't lock up on me. Oh, look at that. I even got a commercial. How great is that? Oh, yeah. Okay, my chat in StreamYard has locked up on me. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. Now it's starting to talk to me. Okay. Okay, you guys could hear me. The chat wasn't moving, guys, and I couldn't see anything. All right, so now we're going to talk about mental health, and mental health is really important. I mean, we can all understand that. It's actually, you know, we're going to call it mental health first aid. Okay. So one of the things that helps with mental health in the crisis is having structure, especially for children. You need to have structure because it keeps a sense of normalcy. The next one is group connections. Being connected to a group, that strengthen numbers. Excuse me. Strengthen numbers. People are going to feel safer if there's more people around. And the last one is journaling. If people are having mental health issues, they're having fear and concerns, have them journal it. It's amazing what a difference that'll make for some people. The next one is we need to keep herbal calmers around. Valerian, chamomile, passion flower. The calmers, you can make a tea, or even I can say even marijuana. You do marijuana to calm people down. These people keep people calm, and then we build emotional first aid kits. Sleep to block out the light, essential oils to calm people down. The aromatherapy, and then inspirational readings. Have something that they could read that will give them peace of mind, right? And like it says on the slide here, look at all these things that you're gonna be dealing with. You're gonna be dealing with anxieties and panic attacks. You're gonna be dealing with depression and hopelessness, post-trauma stress disorder. You have PTSD, sleep disturbances and fatigue. I don't know about you guys. I've been in situations where I did not sleep well because I was under a lot of stress. And then finally, and this is probably if something were to happen tomorrow, this will probably be more acute now than any other time in human history. Social isolation and grief. The younger generations, the late millennials and below, have all been plugged into social media, and they interact with way more people on a daily basis than us older people did. Rick says he's got his blood type written on his boots. But so these are the things we're going to be dealing with. So we need to make sure that we've got mental first aid kits handy to deal with them. We're going to talk about advanced care planning. Okay, this believe it or not, this does not entail any bandaging, and it does not directly deal with bandaging and stopping the bleed and getting people breathing. So if you don't know what advanced care planning is, it ensures your medical treatment aligns with your personal values, even when you're unable to speak for yourself. This is important. This is important during peacetime. This is why people get DNRs and powers of attorney. It becomes even more important under crisis conditions, because if you get to the point where if you get hurt really bad, you don't want to go on. You don't want people keeping you around and having you live in misery. Okay, so you choose a healthcare proxy. Make sure that there's somebody in the group that knows what you want and can be your advocate. Write a living will. This helps providers, people that are taking care of you, to understand your wishes at end of life. And then keep all your documents. If you got a will, even if it's an unofficial one that you've written afterwards, after a crisis has happened, keep these things in waterproof cases and keep them accessible so that people can get to them and see what you want done in case you can't speak for yourself. And I can't stress how important that is. All right. So now, here's some of the challenges. These are special challenges that you're going to face, especially living in urban city and in the metro area as well. But these are special challenges in the cities. Space constraints. You're living in a small apartment. That you live in a house that has no yard. It's literally a postage stamp. Right? You've got very little space, so you need to learn how to utilize that space the best you can. If you're growing herbs, grow vertical. You want it if you can't grow up like this, you want to grow up, right? Make compact kits. Make a kit and pare it down to the bare minimum of what your needs are. All right, that will help. Next one, shared living spaces. You may find yourself in an apartment with roommates or in a multi-generational house. This is going to increase it when the sanitation goes away. This is going to increase the risk of people getting each other sick. All right. So we need to learn how to mitigate that stuff. Know how to handle sanitation and hygiene in these shared spaces whenever the services go away. Next one in the city. This is a bad one in the city. This is one of the things I really like about cities. Noise and light pollution. Cities are extremely noisy, even in the middle of the night. I've been in New York, Chicago, Naha, Japan, Korea at night. Even at 4 o'clock in the morning, they are noisy places, and they're always lit up. That's one of the things I hated about living in Kansas City metropolitan area is you never see the stars because of all the light pollution, right? In fact, the light pollution bothers me so much that living in the country, the electric company make us have a light pole in our yard. And this is so if electricity goes out, they can just drive down the road and tell who's got electricity and who doesn't. It's got nothing to do with safety or anything. It's 100% so that they can identify who has power and who doesn't. That single light bothers me because I like it being dark now. Right, and it's 100 times worse in the city. So we need to learn how to mitigate this stuff. Eye masks, blackout curtains, white noise apps. Those things become really important. And I talked about the sanitation risks of living in a shared space. We need to practice proper hygiene and off-grid sanitation. The next one is evacuations. If something happens to somebody, we need to know how to get them, assuming that medical services exist someplace. We need to have routes and maps and alternate clinics marked out. We need to know where to evacuate these people to if and when the time comes. And finally, this is more of mitigation than a challenge, but we need to learn alternative therapies. Maybe get somebody to learn acupuncture or massage, low-tech healing type of stuff. I'll tell you what, if we don't have a chiropractor in at least adjacent to our circle when something goes down, I'm going to be very upset because a chiropractor will take care of a lot of problems for people, right? Okay, the next page. Okay, here's some things that I want you to do. Okay, hang on a second. Lynn says we had a natural disaster here 5 years ago, 10 days without power. The night sky was awesome. Oh, absolutely. I love going out in the back pasture at night and looking at the stars. Okay. Here's some action items that you can do next week, the week after, the rest of the month. You can do these that will help you take care of medical preparedness. Take a first aid class or stop the bleed class. The American Red Cross gives both the CPR class and a basic first aid class. Sometimes they're free, just depends on where you're getting it. Other times, I think the most I've ever seen them charge is like $15 for both classes combined. All right, go take a course. Next one, build or audit your medical kit. Break out your medical kit. See what you need to replenish in your supplies or what you may be missing, and take care of that. Start a medicinal herb garden. I know it's late in the summer. You can start stuff inside if you live in a northern clime. You can start that now, and within 4 to 6 months, you'll have a decent amount of herbs ready. Right? And the last one is find a neighbor and talk to them about their medical skills. See if they're medical professionals. See if they're not. See if they know anything about it. All right. So, and that, again, that's part of building community. That the talking to the neighbor is building community. And I've said it 1,000 times over. The hardest part of building a community is having that first conversation. And this gives you a perfect opportunity. All right. Well, we have come to the end of the presentation. Now, I want to reiterate something. The medical preparedness is not about being a doomsday medic. It's not some doomsday fantasy. It's about being ready to care for yourself and your loved ones when no one else can. And honestly, it's not glamorous. It saves lives when the system fails, though, guys. So practice your skills, train your mind, build your supplies, and above all, stay human. All right. We've come to the end. Again, if you like this type of stuff, hit that thumbs up. Give a big like. When we're done with the live, comment down below if you've got anything to add. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. This is the ongoing series on urban preparedness in a survival situation. Share the video group, your mag, somebody who might find it engaging or necessary. Here's a question for you before we go. With everything that we've been through tonight, be honest about this. What's one step you'll take this week to improve your medical readiness? Let us know in the comments before we sign off. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to audit our home medical kit because I haven't done that in over a year, and I know that we're probably running low on some supplies. And I need to audit our antibiotic supply too, because it's been a while since I did that, and I know it's been used because I used some. All right, so go ahead and put it down before we sign off. But share what you're going to try to do this week. And listen, I do appreciate you guys being here. The next topic we're going to talk about is transportation preparedness in an urban environment, how you deal with it in a crisis. And like I said, like, share, and subscribe to this. Most importantly, guys, you need to stay alert, you need to stay ready, and you need to go out tomorrow and live a life done free. All right, guys, you got to take care.
Survival isn't just about having the right gear, it's about mindset. In a world without the rule of law, what will you do to survive? WROL isn't just a game, it's a tool to hone your preparedness and survival mindset. Test your instincts, outthink, outlast, and outmaneuver your opponents in a world that's fallen apart. With WROL, every card you play challenges your thinking, tests your adaptability, and sharpens your ability to make tough decisions under pressure. Whether you are planning for an everyday emergency or prepping for the end of the world, WROL helps you prepare for the chaos of everything in between. Ready to level up your survival skills? Click the link in the description to order your deck of WROL cards today and start building your SHTF mindset. The apocalypse starts here.